Good morning, everyone. We are on day 18 of the Michelle Troconis trial, and here we go.
Are we ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Bring the juice. Would counsel stipulate, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
We continue with the state's case.
Thank you, Your Honor. State would call Salvatore Cavalier, please. While he's coming in, may I approach the clerk, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Cavalier, please.
Yeah, no objection. Let me look at it.
Please raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm as the case may be that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon promise you affirm? Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Salvatore Cavalieri, S-A-L-V-A-T-O-R-E. Last name is Cavalieri, C-A-V-A-L-I-E-R-E.
Cavalier, you may have a seat in the witness box, please. Doesn't matter.
Thank you. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Mr. Cavalier, I'm going to draw your attention back to 2019. Okay? In 2019, did you own or rent property on Deercliff Road in Avon?
I did.
Specifically, what address?
376, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, what kind of property was that?
It was a 31-acre lot with a garage and a farmhouse on it.
What part of that property did you, I guess, have control over?
The garage,
Where was the garage located?
right next to the road on Deercliff.
Did you have any video surveillance on that garage?
Yes, I did.
What was the video surveillance? Could you please explain?
I had a night owl security system. I had 2 cameras on the outside of the building, one on the gable end, one on the soffit.
What areas did those video cameras encompass?
One camera, the one on the gable end, was parallel to Deercliff Road and got traffic coming at it and away from it. And then on the soffit, it was more perpendicular with the road and kind of got everything going left and right, but more of a side view versus head on.
Did you have those video cameras in place on May 24th, 2019?
Yes,
Was that camera system internet-based or hard to the property?
internet,
Was the video or camera surveillance system a continuous stream or motion activated?
continuous.
And do you know if the time was accurate?
I believe it was, yes.
And at some point, did you meet with detectives regarding your video camera?
I did.
Did you provide them with the video camera system?
Yes, I did the hard drive.
Okay. And did you get your hard drive back?
Yes, I did.
May I just have a moment?
Yes.
States 123, your Honor, I would ask to move into evidence. I don't believe there's any objection at this time.
Page 123 admitted as full.
Sir, just a couple of questions. With respect to 376 Deer Cliff Road, is that in any way located near Jefferson Crossing in Farmington?
Yeah, I would say approximately a mile and a half down the road.
By down the road, is it south or north or?
North, I would say, towards Hartford direction.
States 123, just gonna open a map behind you, sir, if you could. Just is 376 Deer Cliff Road on that map?
Yes, it is.
If you could, wouldn't you mind please standing up and pointing to it? And Jefferson Crossing? Thank you. You can have a seat, sir. Your seat's gonna open States 123, file marked 376 Deer Cliff, 1757 Fraught. Sir, if you could take a look at the screen behind you. What are we looking at?
That would be the soffit and camera on the front of the garage. And that would be Deer Cliff Road at the top of the screen.
So the white part on the right side of the screen, is that the garage?
Yes, it is.
And Deer Cliff, you said it is at the road going the upper left to the right of the screen.
Correct.
Jefferson Crossing, is that towards the left side of the screen or towards the right side of the screen if you were?
That would be to the left side.
And then you indicated, sir, you had one other camera.
Yes.
It's going to play file mark 376 Deer Cliff, 1757 side. And again, sir, what are we looking at?
That would be the camera on the gable end of the garage, facing Deer Cliff.
And that road going from the left to the bottom right at this point, is that Deer Cliff?
Yes, it is.
And Jefferson Crossing, where would that be, on the left or the right side of the screen?
Would be on the top left.
Now, on the upper left, there's the date and time, 5/24, 2019, and then 1757. Is that correct time, sir?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I'm just gonna play. That's all. You're talking, nothing further.
No questions.
Cavalier, you step down.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, the state calls Pavel Domini.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Pablo Jimenez. Dawel
And your last name.
Gumienny. Sir, you may be seated.
Good morning, Mr. Gomini. I'm just going to ask that you keep your voice up so that every member of the jury can hear you, okay? Mr. Gomini, first of all, are you nervous being here?
Yes.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Poland.
Where in Poland?
And I don't know how to explain. Near Krakow. It's a small town.
And how old are you, sir?
I am 43.
What year did you come to the United States?
2000. In 2000.
Are you married?
Yes.
Do you have children?
I have 2 children, 13 and 16.
And where do you currently reside?
In Simsbury.
Same residence that you resided at in 2019?
Yes.
What is that address, sir?
27 Springbrook.
I'm sorry?
27 Springbrook.
Okay. I'm just going to ask again, if you just keep your voice up just a little bit, okay? What do you do for a living?
I'm a carpenter.
And how did you begin to work as a carpenter?
When I moved here in 2000, this is where I started doing.
When you moved here in 2000 and started working as a carpenter, were you working for a particular contractor?
Yes, I started working for a small company,
What was the name of the company?
Dream Builders,
What type of work did Dream Builders do?
framing.
And when you say framing, what do you,
It's the structure of the house.
and did you have any experience with it?
No.
So you kind of learned it when you got here?
Yeah.
How did you get the job?
Through some friends.
And how long did you work for that company? Is it Dream Builders?
Yes. I think I stopped working there around 2008 or 9.
When you were working for Dream Builders, did you do any sides framing houses?
I was doing like small side jobs.
What types of side jobs?
Like windows replacement, doors replacement, backs and that kind of stuff.
Now, you indicated that you came to the United States in 2000. Have you been back to Poland since 2000?
Yes.
How many times?
I believe like 3 or 4.
And have you traveled with your family back to Poland?
Yes,
Incidentally, were your children born here or were they born in Poland?
they were born here.
You mentioned that you were working for Dream Builders from 2000 until approximately 2008. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you ever, during that time period, meet someone named Fotis Doulos?
Yes.
Approximately what year did you meet him?
I want to say around 2004.
How did you meet him?
I met his sister first. She was managing his job sites. She was architect by trade. And showed photos.
What was Mr. Doulos' sister's name?
Rena. That's how they started the company. FORE, Four Group, Fortis and Rena.
And can you just, what's the name?
Four Group.
No, the sister's name, I'm sorry.
Rena.
And did you meet her through your work at Dream Builders?
Yes.
Was Mr. Doulos' sister an owner of Four Group at that point?
I'm not sure. I think they were co-owners or I'm not sure the details.
And so did Dream Builders do work for Ford Group? Do work for Ford Group?
But so yes,
Did you do work for Ford Group as part of Dream Builders?
I was working paid by Dream Builders, and Dream Builders was building a framing house for group.
Was this again in approximately 2004?
I would say.
How many, I'll strike that. Did Dream Builders do any other Ford Group over the years?
Yes,
How many would you say approximately?
can't remember.
So were you an employee of Ford Group while you were framing houses for Dream Builders?
No,
Now, at some point, did you leave Dream Builders?
yes.
What year was that?
I think around 2008 or 9.
And why did you leave Dream Builders?
I wanted to start my own work.
And by start your own work, what did you do?
I started framing.
What was the name of your company?
There, I was just working under my name.
Did you have any employees?
No,
How would you get work?
through people that I knew.
Did you do any work for Ford Group as your own company? Being in touch with Mr. Dulos during this time period?
What do you mean? Which time period?
So from the time that you worked at Dream Builders until approximately 2010, when you started your own company, were you in contact with
Yes,
Mr. Dulos?
yes. Others would call me every now and then, you know, like install a door or do this or do that, like small jobs here and there.
And so for how long did you have your own framing company?
So I kept working under my own name into 2016 when I started working for group on the book.
What was significant about 2016 when you began working?
I got my green card.
Now, you indicated that Mr. Dulos would call you to do odd jobs. Did you also frame any houses for Ford Group during
Yes.
that time period?
Yes.
How many houses would you say you framed?
I can't remember. 8, 10.
And what was your relationship with Ford Group at this point? Were you a subcontractor?
Yes.
Did there come a point in time when Mr. Dulos offered you a job at Ford Group?
Yes.
And what year was that?
So I started working as a in 2016, but prior to that, I think around mid 2014, he'll have me like help other managers projects. The projects, and I think in 2015 I was managing projects by myself.
And were you still framing houses on your own time as well? Or were you pretty much dedicated? to
I
Ford
was
Group?
pretty much dedicated to Ford Group.
And you mentioned managing projects. Can you just explain to the members of the jury what you mean by that?
So it's a whole process of building a house from clearing the land to foundation, building the house all the way finished to basically when your new owners can move in. Managing every aspect of that work.
Did that include putting out bids for subcontractors as well?
Yes,
Did you ever meet someone named Jennifer Dulos?
yes.
When did you meet her approximately?
Shortly after I met Forrest,
So around 2004?
yes,
And Mr. Dulos and Jennifer were married, is that correct?
I think so.
When you met Mr. Dulos and Jennifer, where were they living, if you recall?
I think they were living in A1. I don't remember the address.
And did you ever meet any of the Dulos children?
Yes.
How old were the children you met them?
Well, I was kind of meeting them. I don't remember. They were little, but
Okay, so they were young
Yeah.
children. All right. Were any of them born actually since you met Mr. Dulos?
yes,
And did you ever have opportunities to interact with Jennifer Dulos occasionally?
yes.
How would you describe her?
She was a good person, delicate, nice, friendly.
Now, did there come a point in time where the Duloses moved to 4 Jefferson Crossing?
Yes,
Do you remember approximately when that was?
no.
Where was Ford Group's office located prior to 4 Jefferson Crossing?
I believe it was 5 Charlotte Court. I don't remember the time, but it was prior to.
And then did the office move to 4 Jefferson Crossing?
Yes,
Above the garage, is that correct?
yes.
Did you ever, well, firstly, did you have a desk in the office?
Yes,
And did you ever meet someone named Lauren Almeida?
yes.
How did you meet Lauren Almeida?
She was a babysitter for Dulos family.
Did she do anything else for the Dulos family?
I think at some point she was doing like a punch list and maybe try to manage some of the projects.
As an employee of Ford Group?
Yes,
Now, did you ever do odd jobs for Jennifer around 4 Jefferson Crossing?
yes, a lot.
What types of things would you do for Jennifer?
Pretty much anything to do with the house. She would call me, as simple as replace a light bulb to, I remember I was building a swing set on the back for the kids. I would drive her a lot to Boston Airport or things like that.
You mentioned that you would drive her a lot to the airport. What vehicles would you drive her in?
I'm not sure, but I think mainly would be the Suburban.
Suburban have a little bit more space.
When we were driving with the kids, then we would take the Suburban.
Now, did there come a point in time when you met someone named Michelle Troconis?
Yes,
Do you see Ms. Troconis in the courtroom?
yes.
Would you just point her out and tell us what color shirt she has on?
Great.
Judge, you identified the defendant.
Thank you.
Now, there came a point in time when Jennifer moved out of 4 Jefferson Crossing, correct?
Yes,
Did you meet the defendant before or after Jennifer moved out of 4 Jefferson Crossing?
I believe after.
Do you remember approximately when that was?
No,
Do you remember approximately how long after Jennifer moved out you met her?
no, I can't recall it.
And when you met the defendant, where did you meet her?
I believe she walked into the office with photos.
And how would you describe at that point?
Object vague.
Sustained.
Well, was she friendly?
Yes,
You mentioned that Jennifer moved out at some point. I want to direct your attention now to Mr. Doulos and Jennifer's relationship. Did there come a point in time when Mr. Doulos indicated to you that he and Jennifer were going to be separating?
yes.
Do you remember when that was?
I remember we were having a team meeting in the office, and then he announced it to everybody that they're separated.
Was Jennifer still living in the house at this point?
Yes,
And did Jennifer ever make any requests from you during that time period?
yes, she would ask me to move some of the stuff from her house to her family owned a house. I think it was Palm Bridge, house on the lake. So she would ask me a number of times to move some things from her house to the lake house.
And would you do that for her?
Yes,
Why?
because I like, I wanted to help. Oh,
Did you tell Mr. Doulos that you were doing this?
no.
Why not?
At some point, I told Jennifer that I have to stop doing that because this is gonna get me fired.
How did she react when you told her that?
First, she joked, she said, that's okay, so I'll have you to go and renovate the house.
I'm going to object, it's hearsay.
Close.
Oh, and I'll withdraw the objection.
What did she joke?
She said, then I'll have you renovate my house in Palm Beach.
Conversation. Did you ever move anything for her again?
I don't think so, no.
Incidentally, you mentioned that you had driven Jennifer in the Suburban. Did you ever drive her in your Tacoma?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury about that?
Yeah, so I think shortly prior to divorce, she bumped into something with her Range Rover. And she asked me if I could get some paint and touch up the bumpers so Doulos wouldn't see it. And I said that I have a friend who's a mechanic who lives in New Britain, and he can like fix the bumper and make it look like never ever happened for like $400. And she said, okay. So this is when I drove my truck and she drove the Range Rover to New Britain. And then once we left the Range Rover there, I gave her a ride in my truck back to Fort Jefferson.
And you indicated that this was prior to the divorce, so I want to just clear this up. This was prior to her moving out of the house, correct?
Yes.
And can you recall any other time she was ever in your Tacoma?
When I drove her back to pick up the Range Rover,
Sure, other than that particular interaction.
I don't recall it.
Did Mr. Doulos ever talk to you about his divorce with Jennifer?
Can you rephrase the question? What do you mean by that?
Well, did Mr. Doulos ever indicate to you how the divorce proceedings were going or anything like that?
Yes.
What types of things would he say?
He would say like,
No, I'm going to object only on, not to the hearsay, I'm going to object for that time frame. Apparently it's went on for a while.
Well, the question was, did he ever talk to this witness about the divorce? Now, the court does not know what counsel's frame is. The filing of the divorce, the proceedings after the filing. Perhaps you can sharpen the question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gomini, and whether or not there were any cameras at Jennifer's house.
I'm going to object to it's a complex question with two portions.
Well, I'm trying to, I was asked to sharpen the question, so I'm trying to do that.
The question has been sharpened, but there are 2 points.
Sure.
So if you can just ask 1 point at a time.
Did Mr. Doulos ever speak with you or anyone else in your presence about cameras at Jennifer's home in New Canaan?
Yes,
Approximately when was that conversation?
I don't remember exactly. I think it was like a month or 2 prior to Jennifer's disappearance
Where did this conversation take place?
in the office.
Was anyone else present for this conversation? Who was present?
Dan Zeisler,
Who was Dan Zeisler?
it's an audio video guy.
Sorry?
Contractor who does audio and video. Specializes in,
So sort of subcontractor for Ford Group?
yes.
Tell the jury exactly said during the conversation.
So I believe I was,
I'm going to object on hearsay grounds.
Well, first, what was said in the conversation is, as the court understands it, is going to involve 3 people. So that question is quite broad.
Let me see if I can ask another question, Judge. So I'll withdraw the previous question. When this conversation took place, were you present for the entirety of the conversation? Or did you walk in on it?
I'm not sure if I walked in and if I was sitting in the office and they walked in. I don't recall it.
And when they walked in, could you hear what Mr. Doulos was saying to Mr. Zeisler and what Mr. Zeisler was saying to Mr.
Yes.
Doulos? What was Mr. Doulos saying to Mr. Zeisler?
He showed him,
Objection, hearsay.
If I may, Judge, this
Yes.
is not being offered for its truth, rather it's being offered to show the apparent concern that Mr. Doulos had over Jennifer potentially having cameras. So I'm not offering it to prove the truth of the matter asserted, but merely the fact that he was concerned that she had cameras is what's probative in this case.
The problem, of course, is what Mr. Doulos's internal motive was for making hearsay statements. It's not before the court here through this witness, and therefore it is an inappropriate question of this witness. I will also note that it's, at this point, it's also, because it's hearsay, certainly irrelevant to my client. If this was Mr. Doulos's case, that would be a different story.
As the court knows, we have charged Mr. Doulos with committing the crime of murder, and the defendant is charged with conspiring with him to commit that crime of murder. This is directly probative to that issue, whether or not a conspirator committed an overt act.
Still hearsay in this trial.
Oh, first, the court addresses whether it is hearsay. It is hearsay. Now, the next question is whether or not there is an exception. And the court would indicate that under the code, well, first, the court is going to just make clear. Generally, what is the purpose of the hearsay rule? The purpose of the hearsay rule is to keep out of evidence statements or assertions by a declarant that could be considered or would be considered untrustworthy or unreliable. That's the purpose of the hearsay rule. The code has carved out exceptions to the hearsay rule. One of those exceptions is essentially called the residual exception to the hearsay rule. The residual exception to the hearsay rule requires that the hearsay have indicia of reliability. It doesn't fall within the named exceptions to the hearsay rule, but it stands essentially as somewhat of a catch-all. If there is indicia of reliability, the court may admit it. So, counsel, other than simply the charge, what is the indicia of reliability?
Well, Judge, respectfully, I disagree that this is being offered for a hearsay purpose. If I may proffer, the evidence is going to be that Mr. Doulos was asking whether or not a
Well, I'm going to
particular
object to
object-
him
Well,
proffering and answering it when I've objected to the testimony in the first place.
Well, the court's question is, what is the indicia of reliability? That presumes the court has found that this is hearsay. Counsel has stated it's not offered for the truth of the matter asserted. Court does not know what the content of the conversation was. Perhaps the jury needs to be excused.
Yes, Judge.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to take up a legal question. Please do not discuss the case.
Winter. Discussed cameras at Jennifer Doulos' residence. Do you recall?
I want to say a month or two before the May 24th of 2019.
And where did this conversation take place?
Up in the office, for group's office.
I apologize if I've asked these questions already, but who was present for this conversation?
Dan Zeisler. It's an audio video contract.
And do you recall whether or not you were present for the entirety of the conversation?
I'm not sure if I was sitting at the desk and they walk in or they were in the office and I walked in.
But they were already talking?
Yes.
And what did you hear Mr. Doulos saying to Mr. Zeisler?
Mr. Doulos pulled out his phone and started showing Dan Zeisler pictures of Jennifer home with which I believe was motion detectors, and starts asking him if those are cameras.
Mr. Zeisler say?
I don't remember. I think he said they are not.
And did you participate in the conversation at all? What did you say?
I said, I don't think so. I don't think those are cameras.
Did you say anything else to Mr. Doulos?
Yes, I researched it. I recently saw a commercial of like a small square cameras, inch by inch. I believe they were called cop camera. And I showed him that and I said, you know, she can record you with anything. Just don't do anything stupid when you go there.
And when you say don't do anything stupid when you go there, what were you referring to when you said when you go there?
I don't know, like whenever he was worried about.
I want to direct your attention to the spring of 2019, around that same time. Did Mr. Doulos have any dogs?
Yes.
How many dogs did he have?
At some point, I had 2 dogs. There was light brown. I think it's called Love. And then I think Jennifer had like a little dog dog, like a Chihuahua or so.
Oh,
Yes.
which one?
The lab, the big one.
Was the lab still living at 4 Jefferson Crossing at that
Yes.
point? If you could just, let me just finish the question before you answer, okay? Was the lab still living at 4 Jefferson Crossing at that point?
Yes.
And did you actually end up taking the lab to the veterinarian?
Yes.
Did Mr. Julius go with you, or did you take it on your own?
I took it on my own.
And did there come a point in time when you spoke with Mr. Julius about the dog's health?
Yes.
Approximately how long after you took the dog to the vet was that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Approximately how long after you took the dog to the veterinarian was that?
I don't remember exactly. I want to say a day or two after.
And what did you say to Mr. Dulos?
I asked him how's Beckham doing.
And was anyone else present for this conversation?
Michelle.
When you say Michelle, you're referring to the defendant, correct?
Yes.
Where did this conversation take place?
I believe was I walked out of the office door in between the garages, and they were standing there.
And what did Mr. Dulos say when you asked if Beckham was,
He said that Beckham is ill and he's gonna have to put him to sleep. And he said something like, "Can you believe that Jennifer won't even let the kids come over and say goodbye to the dog before we put him to sleep?"
did you respond to that comment?
I don't remember.
And you indicated that the defendant was present. Did she say anything at that point?
Yes,
Tell the jury what the defendant said.
she said she should be buried right next to this dog.
And when you say she, what exactly did she say?
Can I use bad words?
Yes.
She said that bitch should be buried right next to this dog.
And what was her demeanor like when she said this?
I think she was trying to cheer Dulos up. He was like heartbroken that his dog is about to be put down.
How did he react when she said this?
I believe he just look at her.
Now, in 2019, what type of vehicle did you own?
Red Toyota Tacoma.
How long had you owned that vehicle?
I don't remember. I believe I bought the car in like 2012.
And if it, what year was it?
2001.
So it was a used vehicle when you purchased it?
What do you mean by that?
Well, was it, everybody's probably bought a used car that was in great condition. I mean, was it running? Was it?
Yeah, it was okay.
And was this your only personal vehicle?
Yes,
Was it registered in your name or your wife's name?
my wife's name.
And would you use that vehicle for work-related things?
Can you repeat the question?
Would you use that vehicle for work-related things?
Yes,
Did you have any side jobs in 2019?
yes.
What type of side job did you have?
I would do like decks, small roofs, some siding repairs, windows replacement, things like that on the weekends.
And with specifically with respect to the Tacoma, did you have any side jobs for which you used the Tacoma?
Yes, snow plowing.
And was your Tacoma modified in any way to account for the snowplow?
Yes.
Tell the jury how it was modified.
I have it's called snowplow mount. It's basically the big metal piece underneath the front that the snowplow attaches to.
And would you leave that on the Tacoma even
Yes.
not in the winter months?
Yes.
Now, I want to turn back to Ford Group. What was your official title with Ford Group when you joined them in 2016?
Project manager.
And approximately how many projects would you say you would manage at any given time while working for Ford Group?
One at a time, sometimes those two.
Where did Ford Group own properties while you worked for them?
I'm not sure if Fort Jefferson was owned by Ford Group or it was not. But I know they own 585 Deer Cliff, 80 Mountain Spring Road, and 61 Sturbridge Hill Road.
How about 88 Mountain?
88,
Mountain?
yes,
And also they had built the house at 77 Mountain Spring Road, is that correct?
that's across the street from 80.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Were you a part of that build at all?
no,
How many project managers work for Ford Group?
Over what time, Your Honor? Jack?
From your time working for Ford Group beginning in 2016 until 2019, did the number of project managers vary?
yes,
And at any given time, how many project managers were there as a minimum?
one.
And so were you always a project manager for Ford Group?
Between 2016 and 2019,
Yes.
yes.
And who were some of the other project managers during that time period?
Andy Loomis, Stephen Rage, Guillaume Bidelet, Matt Byrne. I think Lauren Amelia at some point.
And would some of these project managers leave Ford Group and come back, and what was the dynamic like?
No, I don't think anybody was leaving and coming back now.
Okay, so if they left, they left.
Yes.
How did Mr. Doulos treat you as his employee?
Okay, the thing with him was, he was very hard-headed. He didn't like people they say no to. That's the easiest way to say
Do you enjoy working for Ford Group?
it. It was a good job. Great.
Why did you like working there?
I like to do that kind of stuff.
When you say that kind of stuff, you mean manage projects?
Building houses, manage projects.
You indicated that Mr. Doulos could be hard-headed. Did there come a point in time where you built your own house?
I renovated.
And that's the house that you currently live in?
Yes.
And did you ever have any discussions with Mr. Doulos about whether or not Ford Group would be a part of that renovation?
He offered me help. Yes.
Did you accept his help?
No, I refused it
Why?
because I want my house done the way I wanted to get it done. I don't want him to say that you got to do.
Did you ever socialize with Mr. Doulos outside of work?
No.
And I'm using socialize in the broadest terms. Did you ever attend Greek Easter at his house?
Yes.
How often?
I want to say I went there 2 or 3 times.
Do you recall what years you went to Greek Easter at Mr. Doulos' house?
Could have been 2017, 18, and 19.
Why did you go to Greek Easter?
He was inviting everybody.
Did your wife attend?
I think once.
Did you feel sorry for Mr. Doulos at any point? And that's why you attended Greek Easter?
Objection. Relevance.
Relevant counsel.
Well, the relevance, Judge, is that it provides the reason why Mr. Gumeni went to Greek Easter in the first instance. It explains his presence, and if I may proffer, he's going to indicate that he went because Mr. Doulos' family was not present.
Well,
Still not relevant.
that question by itself is not relevant. Court is not foreclosing the avenue. It's the same.
When you went to Greek Easter in 2019, were any of Mr. Doulos' children present?
2019?
Yes, sir.
No,
Was Jennifer Doulos present?
No.
Did he ever tell you whether or not they would be present?
I think he mentioned that to me that that Jennifer wanted the kids come to Easter because Michelle and her family is there.
Now, what days of the week did you work at Ford Group?
Monday to Friday,
What were your typical hours?
8 to 5, but it wasn't set hours. I was basically given a project and you know, if I was there from 9 to 6 or 8 to 5 or 7 to 4, it didn't matter.
Mr. Doulos wasn't clocking your time, in other words? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Were you a salaried employee?
Yes,
Would it be fair to say that Mr. Doulos' priority was simply that the project be completed on time?
yes,
So whether you worked 35 hours or 40 hours in a given week didn't
Yes.
really matter to him. Is that fair to say?
correct.
Now, you mentioned that you renovated a house in Simsbury. How many times did, well, firstly, let me ask it this way. Did Mr. Doulos ever go to your house?
Yes,
How many times?
twice.
Did you consider Mr. Doulos to be a close friend?
No,
He was your boss.
yes,
You mentioned your personal vehicle, the Toyota Tacoma. Did Ford Group own any vehicles in 2019?
yes.
Tell the jury what vehicles Ford Group owned.
It was white Jeep Cherokee, Chevy Suburban, and Ford Raptor.
And where would these vehicles be kept? Now, in terms of the vehicles themselves, specifically the Ford Group vehicles, when you would go to a job site, would you use your personal vehicle or would you use a Ford Group vehicle?
Ford Group vehicle.
And where would you get the Ford Group vehicle?
At Ford Jefferson.
Working at Ford Group, when would you typically take possession of a Ford Group vehicle?
Monday morning.
And so if you take possession of a Ford Group vehicle on Monday morning, how long would you have it for?
For the whole week until Friday afternoon.
Why would you hang on to a Ford Group vehicle for the entire week?
So I could leave straight from Simsbury, from my house to the job site, to New Canaan, without stopping by the office.
And you mentioned New Canaan. Was Ford Group working on a project in New Canaan in May of 2019?
Yes,
What project was that?
61 Sturbridge Road.
If you took possession of a Ford Group vehicle for the entire week, where would you leave your vehicle?
At Ford Group office, Ford Jefferson.
Would you use the same Ford Group vehicle each week?
It varied sometimes.
Tell the jury why it would vary.
I like to drive the Jeep, and I believe Michelle liked to drive the Jeep, and Ford wanted me to drive the Jeep because it was better on gas, and I guess he didn't want me to put that kind of mileage on the Ford Raptor, which was more expensive vehicle.
But were there times where you would take the Raptor?
Yes,
What would be a situation in which you would take the Raptor for work?
if I need to move some bigger items that would deliver to Fort Jefferson, like toilets, vanities, stuff that would fit in the Jeep.
And where would you leave your Tacoma key during the work week?
There was drawer in the kitchen or at my desk in the office.
Now, you mentioned that you would drive straight to projects. Did you ever return to the Ford Group office during the week?
Sometimes.
Why would you go back to the Ford Group office during the week?
Some paperwork, invoices, basically to, touch bases with doulas about project, things like that.
If you return to the office during the week, would you take your Tacoma home or would you continue to take the Raft or whatever vehicle you were using?
I would continue to take whatever vehicle I was using.
Now, in May of 2019, was your Tacoma experiencing any mechanical difficulties?
Yes.
Tell the jury what mechanical difficulties your vehicle was experiencing.
So the truck has trouble starting, was leaking oil, I believe, from power steering. The check engine light that was on, it had multiple problems.
Did Mr. Doulos ever drive your Tacoma?
Yes, he did.
How do you know?
I would find like Starbucks coffee cups in it, and I was telling him not to drive it because the car was having mechanical problems, and I was concerned that he's gonna get an accident or something.
On your insurance.
Yes.
Did Mr. Doulos ever call you about any mechanical issues with your Tacoma?
Yes.
When was that?
I don't recall the exact day. I want to say about 2 weeks prior to May 24th.
What did Mr. Doulos say to you?
He called me and he said that he can't start the truck. How do you start it? What's wrong with it? And I told him it's the starter really. He asked me if it's the battery. The battery is not good. I said, no, just keep turning the key. You might start. It's the starter really.
Did you express to him not to drive your vehicle at that point?
Prior to that.
So were you surprised when he was calling you asking you how to start the vehicle?
Yeah, he wouldn't listen. He would drive it anyways.
You mentioned earlier to the jury that your Tacoma was leaking oil in May of 2019.
Yes.
For approximately how long it had been leaking oil?
I want to say I discovered it about a month earlier.
Did you tell Mr. Doulos that the vehicle was leaking oil?
Yes,
Why did you tell him that?
because I don't want to stay in his driveway.
And when you told Mr. Doulos that your vehicle was leaking oil, what, if anything, did he say back to you?
He said, let's park it in the garage or on the grass area, but let's park it in the garage.
So at that point, he did not ask you not to park the car at Fort Jefferson Crossing, correct?
No,
You had mentioned that you were working on a project at 61 Sturbridge in New Canaan.
yes,
What type of property was 61 Sturbridge?
residential,
And what type of work was Ford Group doing at that location?
building a house.
And when you say building a house, there was a house already there, is that correct?
Yeah, that house, Ford Group demolished that old existing house and built new one.
And were there any subcontractors working on that property as well?
Meaning when?
In May of 2019, were there any subcontractors that Ford Group was paying to do work at the house?
Yes.
Tell the jury what contractors those were.
I don't remember. There was a painter, gutter guy. I believe siding guy, landscaping guy.
And what were your response with respect to that particular property?
I was managing it.
And how many days, how long had you been managing the project for in May of 2019?
Since the beginning. So probably for a year.
And did you do any work on the property as well?
Yes,
What type of work would you do?
mirrors, door hardware. I believe I cut down in front of the property.
And were there any subcontractors working on that property as well?
Meaning when?
In May of 2019, were there any subcontractors that Floor Group was paying to do work at the house?
Yes.
Tell the jury which subcontractors those were.
I don't remember. There was a painter, gutter guy, I believe siding guy, landscaping guy.
And what were your responsibilities with respect to that particular property?
I was managing it.
And how many days?
Most of the days.
How long had you been managing the project for in May of 2019?
Since the beginning. So probably for a year.
And did you do work on the property as well?
Yes.
What type of work would you do?
Like installing mirrors, door hardware. I believe I cut down big tree on front of the property. That kind of stuff.
Was that typical in your role as a project manager to do smaller jobs like that?
No,
Why were you doing it on this particular property?
I like to spend time on a job site and just might as well being there.
And do you remember approximately how many other projects Floor Group was working on in May of 2019?
I believe that was the only one. There was some bidding at 88, but the work hasn't begun yet.
And was 61 Sturbridge the only project that you were working on at that point?
Yes.
Now, did there come a time when Mr. Doulos asked you to move your vehicle to 80 Mountain Spring Road?
Yes.
Tell the jury how that happened.
I believe he told me, not sure about the date. It was at the day when Station and came in for dinner, and he called me and asked me if I was coming down to the office and if we could move the Tacoma to 80 Mountain Spring Road.
And I believe you indicated you can't recall the date, but you recall Stephen Reich and his girlfriend.
Yes.
Where were they present?
When I came back from 80 Mountain Spring Road with Doulos and they're up, and then I was pulling out of Fort Jeffers Crossing, I believe Stefan pulled in with his car and we talked for a minute.
Now, I want to talk to you about this for a second. You indicated that you came back from 80 Mountain Spring Road with the Raptor.
Yes.
I want to direct your attention now to the week of May 20th, 2019, Monday, May 20th. Did you have the Raptor for that particular work week?
You mean May 20th, the whole week?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you recall when you picked up the Raptor?
I believe it was like week prior to that.
So May 13th.
Yes.
Why did you have the Raptor for 2 entire weeks?
I don't remember. I think it had something to do with moving door slab, one of the contractors to 61 Sturbridge.
So would it be fair to say then that you had the Raptor over the weekend of the 18th and 19th? Or to the best of your recollection? Did Mr. Doulos tell you why he wanted the Tacoma moved to 80 Mountain Spring Road?
No.
Was that the first and only time you were ever asked to move the Tacoma to 80 Mountain Spring Road?
Yes.
Where did you meet up with Mr. Doulos to do this?
I pulled into Fort Jefferson, the garage doors open, and he was ready to leave.
And when you say he was ready to leave, where was he and where was your Tacoma?
I believe my Tacoma was in the garage, and I just pulled into the parking lot with the Raptor.
And at some point, did he leave Fort Jefferson Crossing with the Tacoma?
Yes, he just told me to follow him.
And did you follow him?
Yes,
And did you follow him in the Raptor?
yes.
Approximately how far away is 80 Mountain Spring Road from Fort Jefferson Crossing?
I want to say 5-minute drive.
Not terribly far. Did the two of you head straight to 80 Mountain Spring Road?
Yes,
And did you drive one behind the other?
I believe I was a little bit trying to turn around or something. I don't know.
Did you ever ask Mr. Doulos why we're moving the Tacoma to 80 Mountain Spring Road?
No.
Why not?
I didn't. I thought maybe he was upset the oil was leaking in his garage. I don't know. I didn't ask.
You indicated that you were following behind Mr. Doulos. Did you arrive at 80 Mountain Spring Road at approximately the same time that he did?
Yes,
And did you see him park your Tacoma?
yes,
Can you describe for the jury how he parked the Tacoma?
so he pulled in around the garage and turned the truck around like he was ready to leave, and parked it on the side of the driveway. The parking spot.
And when you say ready, did he back
So,
it
so the front of the truck was facing,
outward?
yeah,
And after he parked the vehicle, what happened next?
he got in a Raptor and we drove back to Fort Jefferson.
Now, did you ever socialize with Mr. Doulos and the defendant, Michelle Troconis, at the same time?
What do you mean by that?
Let me sharpen my question a little bit. Did you ever ride dirt bikes with the defendant, Mr. Doulos?
Yes,
Firstly, how long have you been riding dirt bikes for?
me personally, I learned when I was a kid. So 25 years.
And how did it come to be that you ended up riding dirt bikes with the defendant and Mr. Doulos?
Can you rephrase the question?
How did you, that gathering end up happening? Did they invite you or what happened?
Yes, one of the days, I believe the first time I went for a ride, it was just with Doodles
Where did the two of you ride?
at the Power Lines Trail behind Fort Jefferson Crossing.
To be honest, it's probably a good time to take the morning recess.
Yes,
Ladies and
sir.
gentlemen, we will stand in our morning recess at 7:35. Please do.
ESSEHIO, which itself relies on a Second Circuit case going back to 1969. And I know Your Honor disagrees, but I thought it was settled law in Connecticut that before any co-conspirator hearsay, alleged co-conspirator statements hearsay comes in under the exception, the court was required to make specific findings that are based on things besides the statements. In other words, the court excludes the statements and then determines whether or not a finding by a preponderance of the evidence, and the court must actually make that finding, that there is a preponderance of the evidence independent of the hearsay, that the court must decide that first, that a conspiracy existed, that the declarant and the defendant were participants in the conspiracy, and that the statement was made in furtherance of the conspiracy. And I submit that so far that none of those things have been shown. The court has disagreed, but I need to put that on the record because, if this has been the law of Connecticut since I think I started practicing, and the court is disagreeing, again, I don't know what to do other than, again, to move for a mistrial because I just don't know what to do.
Well, counsel, you've been in practice for many years. If the court were to determine there was a conspiracy, how could you argue at the time the state rested its case for a motion for judgment of acquittal when the court found a conspiracy?
Well, that's a good point, but first, by a fair preponderance of the evidence, which is of course a lower standard, number one. Number two, that presumes that that precludes a motion for judgment of acquittal, which of course I would then be making as well at the conclusion of the state's case. This is just a preliminary at a lower threshold. And again, that's only determining that there's a conspiracy as to, I'm not even arguing it, we don't even know which crime. I'm only assuming based on the evidence that would be a conspiracy to commit or only charge at this point. It would have to, maybe the state has more evidence, but at this point, the court would have to make that determination. And I understand what Your Honor is saying. I thought what the court said is it's up to the jury, and that's not my understanding of the law. And that's why I feel I have to make that motion because I wouldn't say I could teach evidence because I don't know if I'd be qualified to do that, but I believe I know the rules well enough to at least be able to raise the issue and preserve the record. And that's my concern, because when it comes to something like this, it also has a constitutional imprimatur when it comes to issues of, I can't cross-examine a deceased person. I can't cross-examine people who aren't even in the room. And, I'm doing it to protect the record. So I just want the court to understand the reason that I feel I have to do that.
Thank you. Does the state wish to respond?
Judge, just that, again, I wasn't offering it for a hearsay purpose. That's our position. And I think, frankly, the defense's objection with respect to the confrontation clause is not well taken at all. Because number one, if we're not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted, but merely to show that Mr. Doulos was concerned about the cameras, it's not testimonial in nature, and therefore the confrontation clause is not implicated in the first instance. But even assuming we were offering for its truth, which we're not. There's certainly no evidence that the declarant, Mr. Doulos, made this statement in anticipation of any criminal proceedings. So quite frankly, I think the confrontation clause argument is severely misplaced, Judge, and I'd ask that the court deny the defense's motion for mistrial. I've never experienced so many motions for a mistrial over evidentiary issues. I'm not sure why the defense keeps moving for mistrials on evidentiary issues, Judge, but I would just ask that the court once again deny their request for a mistrial. Their objections are not well taken.
The motion is trial. The jury back in.
I would just note, without my having to object, standing objection to the hearsay then, without my having to jump up and interrupt, if the court would at least allow that to proceed in that fashion.
Well, before we bring the jury out, the court noticed that counsel did not object to certain other statements that were allegedly made by Fotis Doulos. And essentially, the court had to consider whether those statements were made during the course of and in furtherance of the conspiracy. From what the court has heard so far, from all of the hearsay that has been admitted, some of those statements were not in the course of and furtherance of the conspiracy. However, counsel did not object.
Some of them might have been admitted for a reason that if I objected, I knew that Mr. McGinnis would have a response, especially questions. I always believe that if somebody asks something that's not hearsay, it's not a statement. So if I ask what time is it, that's not a statement of the time, that's just inquiry. So there were when, and there may be other reasons that if it's unimportant, I don't want to interrupt, because there's also reasons not objecting everything that might be.
Well, that's interesting, Judge, because earlier when I was examining Mr. Gumini, Mr. Doulos asked the question, is this cameras? The defense objected on grounds of hearsay. So I guess within the last 10 minutes, they've changed their position with respect to whether or not a question constitutes hearsay. I object to any sort of continuous objection, Your Honor, because as the defense aptly pointed out, this is an area where we agree. Not every statement that I'm offering is for the truth of the matter asserted. In fact, much of what Mr. Doulos said is not being offered for much of what Mr. Doulos is alleged to have said in this case is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. So it need not meet any hearsay exception. So I think if counsel has an objection to specific things, he should raise them at the time so the state, so the record is very clear, has an opportunity to respond and indicate what the purpose of the offer is.
Well, Your Honor, that's absurd, because there's speaking objections that are being allowed where the state is being narrating what they're going to get in regardless of the court's ruling. It's on this issue of things that Mr. Doulos said that I'm asking for a continuing objection. If the record were later show that some of these statements would have been admissible under other exceptions, that's for a different court, not for this court. But for me to have to object every time that hearsay is being elicited through this witness, and I'm assuming that's going to go on for the rest of his testimony, that's my.
Well, in this court's view, a continuing objection puts the burden on the court to determine what should be objected to. The court does not carry that role. If there are objections to be made, counsel is obligated to make them. The court is not going to carry that burden that counsel can ably carry. Do you wish to be heard, counsel?
No, Judge.
You can bring the jury in. Counsel stipulate, please.
Yes, Judge.
Yes.
Mr. Committee, good morning again. Mr. Committee, I wanted to just go back to your 2001 Toyota Tacoma for a moment. In 2019, were the original Tacoma seats in the Tacoma?
No,
What types of seats were in the Tacoma in May of 2019?
I believe Ford Focus.
Were those Ford Focus seats in the vehicle when you purchased it?
No.
Who put the Ford Focus seats in the vehicle?
I did.
Why?
When I bought the car, I bought it from a mechanic, and they were just dirty red, and I decided to change it.
And do you recall where you purchased the seats?
It was mechanic in New Britain. I don't remember. I believe it was the same one I brought the Jennifer Land Rover to.
I believe where we left off prior, you indicated that you had motorbiked or dirt biked with the defendant and Mr. Doulos. Is that correct?
Yes,
How many times did you do that?
once just with Doulos and once with Doulos and Michelle.
And I believe you referred to an area as the power lines.
Yes.
Where is that area?
So, back left corner of Fort Jefferson, there was like a small trail that was connecting to it,
And how large was the trail?
miles.
Can you describe the trail for the jury?
It's a white gravel road made for power line company, big trucks.
And approximately when did you dirt bike with defendant and Mr. Doulos?
I can't remember. They had to be, I don't know, 2 weeks, few weeks before that, maybe month,
And I want to just be clear, when you say before that, what are you?
before May 24th, 2019.
Incidentally, did you own a dirt bike when you came to America?
No,
When did you get a dirt bike?
I purchased that dirt bike from Michelle Troconis year or two prior to 2019.
What type of dirt bike was it?
It was Honda 250L, I believe.
How long did the three of you dirt bike for?
Few hours.
Was it fun?
Yeah.
And was this the only time that you had sort of seen Michelle Troconis outside of a formal work event?
I saw her at the Easter party, and like the hobby awards, but that, I guess that's considered work.
What are the hubby awards?
There were meetings with all the builders that would get ordered best project. You know,
What year was this?
it was happening every year.
And was Ford Group invited every year?
Yes,
Was there a year that Ford Group actually got an award?
Pretty much every time.
And would you attend?
Yes.
Who else would attend?
Whoever was managing
Your Honor, I would
then,
object to the vagueness. There's no time frame over the years.
Well, it would happen every year with the testimony. The witness that he worked for the Ford Group for a certain number of years. And the question the court assumes is, did you go every year? That's what the court would assume. The logical question would be to respond to counsel's concern.
Well, why don't we talk about 2019? First of all, when were the Hubby Awards typically held?
when?
Yeah, what month?
I don't remember.
Do you recall whether it was Hubby Awards in 2019?
I don't recall it, no.
Okay. How about 2018?
Yeah.
And who attended in 2018, if you recall?
It was me, Andy Loomis, Michelle Troconis, and Flores Dulos.
Now, Andy Loomis, would he have been, I guess, your counterpart on another project?
He was managing 80 Mountain Spring Road and 77 Mountain Spring Road. That was his project.
In May of 2019, what were the status of 80 Mountain Spring and 77 Mountain Spring Road?
They were finished.
And when a project is finished, what happens then?
It's on the market, waiting for potential buyer.
And were there any realtors that Ford Group would work with usually?
Yes. One of them was Stefan Rach. And there was few other ones that came and go. I don't remember the name.
Were there open houses at the projects?
Yes, every now and then.
And would you ever attend?
Yes.
You mentioned that you had purchased a dirt bike from the defendant. Where would you typically keep the dirt bike?
Typically would be on my house.
And so if you kept the dirt bike at your house, where would you normally ride?
I just play around with my little bit on backyard.
Do you recall whether or not Mr. Doulos and the defendant invited you to dirt bike with them?
Yes.
Incidentally, how long had Mr. Doulos been dirt biking?
He was not an experienced rider. I think he purchased his first dirt bike right after he met Michelle. Or right after Michelle moved into. Or maybe before she moved in, or around that time.
After you rode dirt bikes with Mr. Doulos and the defendant, what did you do with your dirt bike?
I left it at 4 Jefferson Crossing in the garage.
Why?
I was exhausted. And
Do you remember what day of the week this was? Was it your intention to return to 4 Jefferson Crossing and take your dirt bike back to your house
when?
on May 24th, 2019?
Yes.
Did you ever tell Mr. Doulos that that's what you were planning on doing?
Yes.
When did you tell him this?
When we moved Tacoma to 80 Mountain Spring Road, and when I was giving him a ride back, I told him if he's gonna be there Friday evening, and give me a ride back so I can get my truck back, and then I can take my dirt bike.
Did you have any conversation that day with Mr. Doulos about what he would be doing on May 24th, 2019?
I believe he told me, that's,
And you're saying, again, not applicable to my client.
I am definitely not offering this for the truth, Judge. So it is not hearsay.
Well, ask the question so that the court can determine whether it is.
What did Mr. Doulos tell you about where he would be on May 24th, 2019?
Sounds like hearsay and relevance to my client.
Well, what did Mr. Doulos tell you about where he would be? The response is, of course, going to come from the mouth of the declarant. And if it is hearsay, the court will have it stricken if it's offered for the truth.
And I am not offering this for its truth, just to be very clear about it. So it is not being offered for a hearsay purpose.
So at this point, the objection is open.
Did you have a conversation with Mr. Doulos about where he would be on May 24th, 2019 in the morning hours?
yes,
What did he tell you about where he would be in the morning hours on May 24th, 2019?
he told me, not to stop by the office on my way to New Canaan, between 7 and 9 o'clock, because he's gonna have a meeting with, his divorce lawyer.
And Mr. Doulos occasionally meet with attorneys at Fort Jefferson Crossing?
Yes,
And were you present at times when an attorney would come to visit with Mr. Doulos?
he would always tell me to go get lunch, go check on 80 Mountain Spring Road. He did not want me to be present, and
Was this the first time, however, that Mr. Doulos gave you advance notice that an attorney would be coming to the office?
I believe so, yes.
Would you routinely go to the office in the morning?
No. Every Monday.
Every Monday? You said?
Yes.
Now, we've spoken about dirt bikes. I want to talk to you now about bicycles. Did Mr. Doulos own any bicycles?
Yes.
And was there a bicycle Mr. Doulos owned that appeared to be older?
Yes.
What type of bicycle was this?
He told me that's his childhood bicycle. It was, I don't remember the name of it. It was French made.
I'm going to object to this as hearsay. And again, it had nothing to do with my client. Not in furtherance of.
Well, first,
Judge, again, I'm not offering this to prove it was in fact his childhood bicycle. He's indicating that this is a particular bicycle and attributing certain facts to it, but I'm not offering facts for the truth. It explains the description of the bicycle, which I'm about to ask.
You can ask about the description. I don't think whatever Mr. Doulos may or may not have said about it, whether it's worth $1 million or worth $1 matters.
well, the response was, or began this way. Fortis Doulos said, previous to this, and so, counsel, you may continue the line.
Did you ever see this bicycle?
Yes.
Describe it for the jury.
It was older French made bicycle, dark color, I want to say they're brown or black, with like a racing bicycle with the horns. All right.
Where did Mr. Doulos keep this bicycle?
In the garage in Fort Jefferson.
Where would he keep it in the garage?
I believe it was hanging on one of those hooks in his garage.
When You say hanging on a hook, or where was the hook located?
There were like heavy duty hooks made for bicycles on the attached to the garage walls.
I want to direct your attention now to Friday, May 24th, 2019. That was the Friday of Memorial Day weekend, is that correct?
Yes,
Incidentally, does your wife celebrate a birthday around that time?
yes.
When's your wife's birthday?
May 30th.
When you began your day that morning, where were you?
I was home.
And can you just refresh the jury's memory as to where you live?
27 Springbrook, Simsbury.
What,
Raptor.
when you left that morning, did you take your cellular phone with you?
Yes.
What was your cellular phone number at the time?
860-716-7363.
You mentioned that you had the Raptor. For how long had you had that vehicle?
Almost 2 weeks.
In 2019, were you aware that the Raptor had what's known as an infotainment system?
What do you mean by that?
Well, do you know what an infotainment system is?
No.
Did the Raptor have the ability to hook up to Bluetooth speaker with your cell phone and things of that nature?
Yes.
Did you know that that infotainment system tracked the GPS of the Raptor?
I-
When you left your home in Simsbury that morning, where did you go?
Straight to the job site in New Canaan.
And the job site was located at 61 Sturbridge?
Yes.
Is it Sturbridge Hill?
I believe Sturbridge Hill.
On your way to 61 Sturbridge Hill Road, did you speak to anyone
Yes.
on your cellular phone?
Yes.
Who did you speak to?
My and my wife's friend Anna.
Approximately how long did you speak with her for?
About 20-25 minutes.
And without getting into too much of that conversation, it's about whether or not Anna was going to be attending your wife's birthday party, which was scheduled for the next day, correct?
Yes.
When you arrived on Sturbridge, was anyone else at the location?
I don't remember.
Can you tell us whether or not you met up with any subcontractors at 61 Sturbridge that day?
I don't remember if I meet with anybody at that job site. There's possibility that I met
I'm going to
with.
object to speculation of what's possible.
He's expanding on his answer.
Well, his response was, I don't remember if I met anyone, any subcontractor that day. And then the next sentence was, there's a possibility. Well, the question had been responded to. You may ask another question.
Mr. Gumini, May 24th, 2019 was a time just another day of work for you, is that correct?
Yes, it was Friday before a long weekend.
And so because of that, have you occasionally had difficulty remembering exactly what you did on May 2019?
Yes.
You didn't know someday you'd be in court talking about.
Objection, leading an argument.
Yes.
Well, it's not leading, it's not argumentative. The question is, essentially, has your memory been intact about that day? That's the question.
And you never wrote a timeline about where you were on May 24th.
Objection reading.
Well, it is a corollary to the previous question. You cannot remember. A logical corollary is, and you did not memorialize it, correct?
You never wrote a timeline about where you were on May 24th, 2019, correct?
Never.
At the stage of the project, 61 Bridge was in at the time.
I believe the painter was finishing painting. The landscaping guys were doing seeding grass and installing plantings and things like that. I was installing hardware for doors, mirrors. It was basically done.
Approximately how long were you at 61 Sturbridge for?
10 o'clock, and I left, I want to say 2:30.
Did you ever meet up or see Mr. Doulos while you were in Canaan?
No. No.
Did you speak with Mr. Did there come a point in time where you came with Mr. Doulos?
Yes.
Tell the jury about that communication.
I believe at some point I sent him text message with invoice. I don't remember the conversation in Farmington.
He also asked you whether any progress had been made.
Yes,
Did you reply to that?
I don't remember.
What was the invoice for?
For
When you say for landscaping, was there landscaping work being done at 61 Sturbridge?
Yes.
Who was the landscaper, if you recall?
Bill Wood.
Approximately what time was this exchange?
I can't recall it. It had to be after lunch hours.
Did you ever leave 61 Sturbridge that day?
It's possible that I went for lunch.
Who would you have gone for lunch with?
Well, again, it's possible, so then the next question would not be, who did you go with if he doesn't know if he did?
I'll rephrase it. You don't have a recollection as to whether or not you went for lunch, correct?
I don't.
Did you go for lunch ever when you were working in New Canaan?
Yes.
Who did you go to lunch with?
Sydney, Vienna.
Where did you go?
There's Chinese restaurant down the road in UK.
I don't recall whether or not it was on May 24th or a different day, correct?
It's possible.
After the 61 Sturbridge, where did you go?
I went back to Farmington,
What vehicle were you driving?
Ford Raptor.
Did you stop anywhere on the way?
I believe I stopped by gas station across from Yukon in Farmington to fill up the Raptor.
Now, you've obviously driven the Tacoma and the Raptor for a few years, is that correct? Up until this point?
Yep.
Did the Raptor take more gas than the Tacoma?
Yes, he did.
Do you recall approximately how much more gas?
I believe Tacoma won't take more than 17 gallons of gas on empty. And the Raptor, bigger gas tank.
Did you fill the gas tank of the Raptor?
Yes,
Did you get a receipt?
yes,
Did you hang on to that receipt?
yes.
Can you tell the jury why you hung on to that receipt?
I was using a company credit card, and every end of the month, I would give my boss doulas the receipts.
So you paid for the gas with a company credit card?
Yes,
Where was this gas station located?
I don't remember the address. I believe it's Babu gas station or something like that. It's across the street from Yukon.
Yukon?
Yes,
In what town?
Farmington.
After you got gas, where did you go next?
Fort Jefferson.
Approximately what time did you arrive at Fort Jefferson?
I want to say around 4:30, 4:40, around that time.
Later on in the afternoon?
Yes.
And when you arrived at Fort Jefferson, can you indicate to the jury where you went? Actually, let me ask this way. Where, if anywhere, did you park the Raptor when you arrived at Fort Jefferson?
I must have just pulled straight in between the garages into the parking area.
And after you get in, did you see Mr. Doulos?
No,
Did you see the defendant?
no,
Did you see any vehicles?
no,
Did it appear that anyone was home?
no.
What did you do next?
I went, I called Los to see where he is because we had an understanding that he's gonna help me get my truck that evening. He didn't answer, so I went into the kitchen where I would usually leave the key for Tacoma to see if the key is there. And I saw black eye on the island connected and charging, so I thought he might forgot his phone or something. And I went upstairs to the office to look at my desk and his desk if he didn't leave the key for the truck there, and I didn't see him.
You mentioned earlier that it was your intention at your dirt bike on this particular day.
Yes,
Can you explain to the jury why you wanted the key to the Tacoma so that you can bring your dirt bike home?
the Tacoma had a longer bed than the Ford Raptor. Tacoma had a 6-foot bed, and Raptor was only 5 feet, so I don't think the bike would fit in the Raptor. And also, Tacoma being a smaller truck is lower, which makes it easier to load the dirt bike on it.
Did you locate your key in either the kitchen or the office?
No.
Incidentally, how were you able?
Key for the office and the house.
Approximately how long did you have a key for?
Probably since 2016.
After you weren't able to locate your keys and Mr. Doulos didn't answer his phone, what did you do next?
I I took the Raptor and I went to 585 Deer Cliff.
And far away from Fort Jefferson Crossing.
It's like minute away.
Now, you listed off several properties earlier that the Ford Group owned. Was 585 Deer Cliff Road one of them?
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury the condition of 585 Deer Cliff on May 24th, 2019?
It was an old house. There was on the market, I believe, as property only. I think the house was going to be demolished.
And why did you go to 585 Deer Cliff?
I wanted to grab 2x10, basically like a ramp to help me load the door bike.
How did you know that there would be a 2x10 at 585 Deer Cliff?
This is where I unload my door bike.
I'm
And
sorry,
like,
that's what you said, sir.
this is where I unload the door bike when I brought back to Fort Jefferson.
Was it your 2x10?
I don't know. Could it be one from job site? Could it be one of mine?
Where was the 2x10 stored at 585?
In the garage.
Was there anything else in the garage?
Yeah.
What else is in the garage?
Crash, Porsche Cayenne, some big exterior doors, and leftover materials from job sites.
Was 585 almost becoming a storage location for Ford Group? Who owned the Porsche Cayenne, if you know?
I believe it belonged
Objection,
to,
speculation, and hearsay.
Well, who owned the Porsche Cayenne? The court did not hear what came after that, if you know it. That's what the court thought it heard.
He said, I believe.
Well, the question, is, who owned the Porsche Cayenne, if you know? Was that the question or was that not the question?
That was the question, sir.
Overruled.
You may answer the question, Mr. Newman.
can you repeat it, please?
Who owned the Porsche Cayenne, if you know?
I believe was registered on Jennifer Dulos.
And you described it as crushed. What did you mean by that?
It looks like hit a tree with it.
Was the Porsche Cayenne functioning at the time?
No,
Approximately how long were you at 585 Deer Cliff during this particular trip?
a minute.
Was the garage door open or did you need a key?
It wasn't live. You just lift it up and open it.
If it was your intention to take the Tacoma home that weekend, why did you load the 2x10 into the Raptor?
First, I thought I was gonna try to load the door bike on the Raptor, but as I was pulling out of 585, I thought maybe I'll stop by 80 Mountain Spring Road and see if the key is in the truck, or maybe Dulos is there, or
And you mentioned that you wanted to see if the key was in the truck. That was where you had gone with Mr. Dulos to park the Tacoma earlier in the week, is that right?
Yeah.
Was Mr. Dulos at 585 trip?
yes,
Was the defendant at 585?
no.
Approximately how long did it take you to travel from 585 Deer Cliff to 80 Mountain Spring Road?
I want to say about 7 minutes. 5.
Fairly quick ride?
Yeah.
When you arrived at 80 Mountain Spring Road, where did you go?
I pull right next to my truck.
And can you just describe 80 Mountain Spring Road for the jury in terms of the driveway and its relationship to the house?
So it's a pretty long wavy driveway. It comes in and it goes around the back of the house.
And where was your Tacoma?
Exactly the way we left it the day before.
Now, 80 Mountain Spring Road has a 4-bay garage, is that correct?
Yes.
Was the Tacoma parked in front of one of the garages? Or bays?
No, it was not close to the garage. It was away from the garage.
Were there any other vehicles present when you arrived?
Yes.
Other vehicles were present.
By Jeep and Chevy Suburban.
Was Mr. Dulos present?
Yes.
Was the defendant present?
Yes.
How did Mr. Dulos react when he saw you?
The way I can say, look, like surprised for a second or two.
How did the defendant react when she saw you?
About the same way.
Where were they located?
So Doulos was standing next to the Suburban, I believe, by the first bay, and Michelle was way back where the Jeep was, like I want to say 15 feet away.
And just to be clear here, when we're referring to the Jeep, we're referring to the white Jeep Cherokee, correct?
Yes.
And we're referring to the Suburban, we're referring to the black Suburban, correct?
Yes.
Did the black Suburban have anything on its roof?
Yeah.
What did it have on its roof?
It's like a trunk. I guess it's called two roll.
Did you get out of your vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Well, not your vehicle, out of the Raptor, I guess. And did you say anything to Mr. Dulos?
Yeah, I made a comment about his hair.
And when you say you made a comment about his hair, describe his hair for the jury.
He was closely shaved.
In 2019, how were you in your hair?
Exactly the same way.
So what did you say to Mr. Dulos about his hair?
I told him, what are you doing? You shave your head. We wearing dirty or work clothes. You trying to be as handsome as me?
And how did Mr. Dulos respond?
I think he just smiled. Yes, I did.
And what did he say?
He told me they were cleaning. He told me Michelle was cleaning the windows, and he was cleaning some stuff outside.
Overruled.
You can continue.
He told me Michelle was cleaning the windows, and he was cleaning some stuff outside.
How long had you known the defendant at this point? Approximately.
About 2 or 3 years.
Isn't it true that in all those years, you never saw her cleaning a project site?
I don't recall it.
Did you see any garbage bags? Did you ever look inside either the Suburban or the Cherokee?
No.
At that time, referring to your first interaction with Mr. Dulos, do you recall the defendant saying anything?
I don't know.
You mentioned that Doulos and the defendant initially appeared surprised to see you. Can you describe their demeanor eventually as you continued to interact with them?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. You mentioned that they initially appeared surprised to see you, correct?
Yes.
Did the interaction ever change? Did it become more normal?
Yes, after I made the joke.
And were they both acting normal at that point?
Yes.
What did you do next?
I think I made a comment about the grass that I seeded there a few weeks prior to that.
So you had done some work at 80 Mountain Spring Road?
Occasionally, yes.
And was grass sort of cornered off at all? Roped off, I guess?
No, I guess when they originally seeded, it didn't take off well, so I had to reseed it.
What was Mr. Doulos wearing at 80 Mountain?
He was wearing light blue jeans with holes in it, and brown shoes. I don't remember the t-shirt.
Do you recall what type of clothing the defendant was wearing?
I believe she was in black leggings, kind of pants.
Did you and Mr. Doulos walk around the property of 80 Mountain?
Yes,
Can you describe to the jury what direction you went?
we went around the front of the house and the back of the house, and we came back to the parking.
Did the two of you speak about the grass at that point?
Yes,
What did Mr. Doulos say to you about the grass?
I told him the grass looks really good. It took off. He's like, yeah, I think we're gonna sell the house, And when we went around the back patio, there was like 2 tracks, I want to say, tire marks when landscaping was doing some work there. He left.
As you were walking around the property, Mr. Doulos, where was the defendant?
Michelle stayed on the parking spot.
Approximately how long did you walk around the property with Mr. Doulos?
I don't know how long does it take to walk around the house. 2 minutes? 3?
After you walked around the house, where did you?
By the first bay of the garage.
Approximately how close to Mr. Doulos were you at this point?
We were next to each other.
And if you could just maybe, just for the record, are we talking a couple of feet?
Yes.
And how far away were you from the at this point?
About the same distances from within 2 or 3 feet. Yes.
What was the discussion about?
I told Ulas if he could give me or ride with me to Fort Jefferson so we can leave one of the vehicles and he can give me right back so I can get my Tacoma. Because there was 4 cars and 3 people.
Was the defendant present for this conversation? Say anything during this conversation about where she was going to be going?
Yeah, after Dulas told me, yeah, let's go, and then and I believe Michelle said that she has to go meet with somebody about some rugs, carpets. That's what I can remember.
What happened next?
I got in a Raptor, and then I put the truck in reverse and I look on the Tacoma and I saw the key from my truck sticking from the passenger door.
So I just want to be clear about this. When you say sticking from your passenger door, was it in the slot for the key?
Yes,
Did you retrieve your Tacoma key at that point?
no, because I figured I'll be back there in 5-10 minutes.
So what vehicle are you driving at this point?
Ford Raptor.
Did you, Mr. Doulos, and the defendant all leave 80 Mountain at the same time?
I left. I didn't see him in the mirror, but shortly after I met with Doulos at Fort Jefferson.
Do you know what vehicle you were driving at that point?
I believe the Chevy Suburban.
And what vehicle was the
The white Jeep.
You indicated that you left. When you left 80 Mountain Spring Road, if you're coming out of the driveway, did you make a right or a left?
I don't recall if I was backing out of the driveway or I turned around on the driveway, but I would take a right towards Fort Jefferson.
And this is the home that has the Porsche Cayenne.
Yes,
Why did you go back to 585?
I want to leave the 2x10 there and my toolbox.
How long did it take you to get from 80 Mountain Spring Road to 585?
5-7 minutes.
Did the defendant or Mr. Doulos follow you to 585 in either vehicles?
No.
What did you do once you got back to 585?
I unloaded the 2x10 and my toolbox, and then I went to Fort Jefferson Crossing.
Approximately how long were you at 585 during this trip?
A minute.
You indicated that you went back to Fort Jefferson Crossing. How long did it take you to get there?
Another minute.
Is 585 here closer to Fort Jefferson Crossing than 80 Mountain Spring Road?
Yes.
When you arrived at Fort Jefferson Crossing, what did you see?
I saw Suburban park in the left bay in the garage.
Did you see Mr. Doulos?
Yes.
Did you see the defendant?
No.
Did you see the white Cherokee?
No.
Can you tell us whether or not the white Cherokee was on the property at that time?
I don't remember seeing it.
And with respect to Mr. Doulos, what did he do when you arrived back for Jefferson Crossing?
Either on the mudroom entry or in the kitchen. Can't remember exactly.
And what happened next?
He got into the Raptor and we went back to 80 Mountain Spring Road
And what was the purpose in going back to 80 Mountain Spring Road?
to get my truck.
Do you recall at this point whether or not you were driving the Raptor or was Mr. Doulos?
I don't.
And approximately how long did it take you to get back to 80 Mountain Spring Road?
It's about the same distance as 585 from 80 Mountain Road, so it's 5-7 minutes.
When you arrived back at 80 Mountain Spring Road, was anyone present on the property besides you and Mr. Doulos initially?
No.
Did you see your Tacoma?
Yes.
Were the keys still in the passenger door of your Tacoma?
No.
Did you see your keys anywhere on the property at that point?
No.
Did you speak to Mr. Doulos about the fact that the keys were missing?
Yes.
What did Mr. Doulos say to you?
He says that Michelle has a key.
So she had the keys?
That's what he told me.
Did he say anything else to you at that point?
Yes, he asked me if I wanted to just keep the Raptor for the weekend and leave the Tacoma at 80.
Did you want to keep the Raptor?
No,
Why not?
I didn't know if I'm gonna do the bike on a Raptor, and I wanted to take the tour bike home.
So you were willing to try it earlier, but now that you had access to your Tacoma, you wanted your Tacoma back, is that
Yes.
correct? Did you know that the defendant was going to be taking your keys?
No,
Did you tell her while you were all at 8 Mountain Spring Road that she had permission to take your keys?
No.
Did she ever tell you that she was going to take your keys?
No.
Did Mr. Doulos ever tell you that she was going to take your keys?
no,
After you indicated to Mr. Doulos that you wanted your Tacoma, what happened next?
I believe he called Michelle.
Was that done in your presence?
Yes,
And did he indicate to you whether or not she would be coming back with the keys?
I don't remember.
At some point, did the defendant arrive at 80 Mountain Spring Road with your keys?
Yes,
As you sit here, do you recall what vehicle she had when she arrived? In between the time that you believe Mr. Doulos called the defendant and when she arrived with your keys, what were you and Mr. Doulos doing, if you recall?
I don't. We could have walked on the property, fixing the ribbons, by driveway, something like that.
And I can't remember if I asked you this, but how long did the defendant arrive?
I want to say between 5 and 10 minutes.
Who actually gave your keys back to you?
Doulos.
And after he gave you the keys, did the three of you leave again?
Yes,
Which vehicles are everyone driving at this point, if you recall?
I don't know what Michelle was driving. I know Doulos was taking the Raptor that we came in.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I know Doulos was driving the Raptor because we came with the Raptor, and I was taking my Tacoma.
When you got in the Tacoma,
I don't recall it.
did you see anything that appeared to be blood in the vehicle?
No,
Where did you go leaving 80 Mountain Spring Road?
I went to 585 Liquid.
Did anyone follow you to 585 for this
Doulos
trip?
did.
Why did he follow you to 585?
I was gonna leave my Tacoma at 585 Deercliff, and he needed to give me a ride back to Fort Jefferson.
And why were you going to Fort Jefferson bike to 585?
I just drove it.
Did the defendant go back to 585 with you and Mr. Doulos?
No,
When you got back to strike that, did you and Mr. Doulos travel back to Fort Jefferson?
yes,
Approximately how long did that take? From 585?
minute.
And got to Fort Jefferson Crossing, what did you do?
I was having trouble starting the dirt bike, so I have to use the battery booster to start it. I was playing around with that for a little bit.
Did Mr. Doulos help you with the dirt bike?
Yes,
How did he help you?
he gave me the battery booster and like basically he stand next to me.
On all of these trips, including when you were with Mr. Doulos and the Raptor, and when he was assisting you at Fort Jefferson Crossing with the dirt bike, can you describe his demeanor for the jury?
It was normal, calm.
Did you see the defendant at Fort Jefferson Crossing at this point when you're jump starting the dirt bike?
I don't recall it, no.
How long did it take you to jump start the dirt bike?
I don't remember.
Did you get it started eventually?
Yes,
And what did you do with it?
I drove it to 585 Deercliff.
And after you got back to 585 Deercliff with your dirt bike, what did you do?
I loaded it on the back of my Tacoma. Just drop it down.
Did you go home immediately?
No.
Where did you go first?
I stopped by my neighbor's house. He called me earlier and asked me he was gonna be away for the weekend, and he asked me if he could show me a lot around for that weekend. He's gonna want me to let his dog out because he's not gonna be home.
And did you do so?
No,
Why not?
I think they had some conversation with his wife and come back later.
Now, Mr. Gomini, I want to talk to you now about an agreement that you have with the state's attorney's office.
Yes,
Are you familiar with that agreement?
which one?
The grant of immunity?
Yes,
Now, Mr. Gomini, in 2019, did you retain the services of an attorney?
yes,
And what's the name of your attorney?
Lindy Urso.
How did you get referred to Mr. Urso?
I don't remember. It was one of Dulos' lawyers.
When you say one of Doulos' lawyers, you're not meaning Urso is one of Doulos' lawyers.
No, it was referred to me by one of Dulos' lawyers.
And in 2019, Mr. Urso had a conversation with then State's Attorney Colangelo, is that correct?
Yes,
And former State's Attorney Colangelo indicated that You may not be charged with the crime of hindering prosecution if you agree to cooperate with the litigation and prosecution of others in connection with the disappearance of Jennifer Farber-Dulos on May 24th, 2019. Is that correct?
I believe that was verbal agreement at that time, yes.
And more recently, specific on December 4th, 2023, current state's attorney, Mr. Forensic, put that agreement in writing. Is that correct?
Yes.
May I ask Mark for ID?
Yes.
Judge, this is states 124. I don't think there's an objection.
Page 124 admitted as full.
Okay, I'm gonna, if I may, Your Honor, just.
I haven't endeavored with this machine yet, Judge, so Attorney Henning's going to help me. Okay. Mr. Gomini, have you seen this?
Yes.
And is this the grant of immunity from my boss, State's Attorney Forensic, to you in connection with this case?
Yes.
And it indicates that you will not be prosecuted in connection with this case unless you perjure yourself or act in contempt of court. Is that correct?
Yes.
Just returning 124 to the clerk. Thank you. What did you do on the evening of May 24th, if you recall?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure, May 24th, 2019, after you got home, do you recall what you did?
No.
I want to direct your attention now to that Saturday, May 25th, 2019. Did you and your family have plans?
Yes,
And what were those plans?
it was my wife's birthday party.
Earlier in the day, had you had any communications about selling a lawnmower? Tell the truth about that.
An ad on Craigslist, I believe, or that was,
Your Honor, I'm going to check on relevance ground. I don't think that's anything, it certainly has nothing to do with my client. I don't even think it has anything to do with the case.
Well, the court does not know where this line leads, so the court is going to allow some leeway.
You remember it was on May 25th,
yes, I'm pretty sure.
and you indicated you had an ad on Craigslist?
I believe it was offer up or Craigslist.
And did you actually sell the lawnmower that day?
Yes,
Who did you sell? And approximately what time of day was this?
Again, Your Honor,
Well-
it has nothing to do with anything.
Well, we don't know that, counsel. The court is going to ask counsel, where is this going?
Well, I'm just describing his day, Your Honor. It is getting to a phone call that he receives. I'm just walking the jury through the day.
Oh, that is relevant. Staying.
Do you recall what time your wife's birthday party started?
I believe people will start coming in around lunchtime.
And did you receive a phone call from Mr. Doulos on the 25th?
Yes, I did.
And approximately what time of day was this, if you recall?
It had to be in the afternoon.
And do you remember what Mr. Doulos said to you?
That he doesn't have his phone to call him on this one from now.
Did he say anything to you about Jennifer Doulos at that point?
No.
I want to direct your attention now to Sunday, May 26th. Did you receive another phone call from Mr. Doulos?
Yes,
Do you recall approximately what time of day you received this phone call?
had to be in the afternoon.
And was he calling you from that new phone number that he'd given you the night before?
I believe so.
Describe that conversation for the jury.
Doulos told me that Jennifer is missing. That I don't recall exactly the conversation. He said that he wishes that she's gonna show up, that would show that she's not capable of overseeing the kids. And he was asking me when I'm gonna be back and to work.
Were you surprised when he asked you that?
I'm gonna object to that, Your Honor.
I'll rephrase. Was Monday supposed to be a scheduled off day for Ford Group?
Yes,
And was that Memorial?
yes.
So given that you had a scheduled off day, what did you say to Mr. Doulos about when you'd be returning to work?
Tuesday.
Did you see either Mr. Doulos or the defendant the weekend of May 25th, 26th, and including the holiday 27th?
No.
I want to direct your attention now to Tuesday, May 28th, the day that you return to work.
Yes.
How did you get to work?
I drove my Tacoma.
And do you recall whether or not this is the first time you'd operated at Friday?
I recall it
Approximately what time did you arrive at work?
around 8 o'clock in the morning.
And just be clear, when we say work, you're not driving directly to a project site. You're going to the office at 4 Jefferson Crossing. Is that correct?
Yes,
When you arrived at 4 Jefferson Crossing at 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, May 28th, where did you go?
I went in for Jefferson Crossing
Why did you go into the kitchen?
to ask Doulos what vehicle I'm taking and give him the key to my Tacoma.
And was this your routine every Monday?
Yes. Unless I saw him in the office.
I'm sorry?
Unless I saw him in the office.
When you got to the kitchen, who did you see?
So Otis Lewis and Michelle,
Where were they located?
they were standing in the kitchen.
And can you just describe the kitchen for the jury?
So when you walk into the kitchen from the mudroom, there's a big island kitchen and dining room, dining table.
And where were they standing?
They were standing right next to the island.
And what did Mr. Dulo say to you?
Dulas told me that and I believe Michelle said they're playing games.
And so after the defendant said it could be the lawyers playing games, did Mr. Dulo say anything else?
He asked where I was on Friday.
How did you respond to that? Are you surprised that he was asking you that?
Yep.
What else did he say?
He asked me if there was any. I think yes, but I'm not sure.
And did he say anything about writing down your whereabouts?
I'm going to object leading and hearsay.
Well, sustained on leading.
What else did Mr. Dulo say to you?
He asked me if I was calling him that morning.
I'm sorry?
He was asking me if I was calling him that morning.
Calling him from your phone?
Yes.
And after he asked
I
you,
remember, let me look at my phone, and I pulled my phone out and I started looking at it. And he asked me if he can see it.
and what happened next?
So I handed him my phone and he started looking through. My calling it, I guess.
Phone.
I want to say a few minutes, 5 minutes,
And how far away was he from you when he had your phone?
about 6 feet.
What's the defendant doing as Mr. Dulos has your phone?
She was standing right next.
Did Mr. Dulos ever bring writing a timeline? Tell the jury about that conversation.
He told me that the police took his phone, that he spoke with his attorney, and he told him to write down timeline. And he told me to look through my phone and write down where I was throughout the day.
What did you say when he told you to write down where you were throughout the day?
I was surprised. I told him, and what am I gonna do? Police is gonna ask me, I'm gonna pull out a piece of paper and read it to them.
So you did not agree to write a
No.
timeline? Did you find that he was asked to write a timeline in the first place?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Did you find it strange that he was asking you to write a timeline in the first place?
Yeah, that's why I respond that way.
After you told Mr. Dulos that you would not be writing a timeline, defendant saying,
Yes, Michelle said that she's not gonna write it.
approximately how long did this conversation between the three of you last?
The whole conversation,
Yes, sir.
15 minutes.
And after the conversation ended, did you give Mr. Doulos the key to your Tacoma?
Yes.
What did you do next?
You mean,
Well, let me back up. The conversation ends at some point, correct?
yes.
And then what do you do next?
I was asking him what vehicle I'm taking. And after going back and forth with Michelle, he told me to take the Jeep.
The white Jeep Cherokee?
Yes,
Incidentally, did you prefer the white Jeep Cherokee?
yes.
Why?
It was smaller, quieter vehicle. My parkway that I was driving when from
Good place to stop
Yes,
for our
Judge.
luncheon recess. Ladies and gentlemen, we will resume at 2:00. Please do not discuss the case.
Who, after I don't know if he consulted this attorney or not, later said, yes, I actually have that exact same brand in my closet, and that could have been the sweatshirt. But his recollection is that the one that was shown to him was darker than he remembers turning in. Now, what makes this more difficult is the state recall from the record. It turned out that in the box that was turned over to by Attorney Knight to the state police, there was a letter of conveyance from my office to Attorney Knight regarding at least some of the things that were in that box. This led to their motion to disqualify me, my motion to therefore disqualify the state's attorney's office because it involved the disclosure and use of an attorney-client privileged communication that I submitted was by my client. As a result, I retained an attorney, Attorney Gulash from Bridgeport, who came here, was involved in extensive negotiations. I think the state, Mr. Forensic, brought in a retired state's attorney from Danbury because of the conflict in their office to negotiate. There were several discussions that I was not privy to. I'll just note, I was here for the court matters, but there were a lot of negotiations going on. And as I understand, I believe there was some writing, which I don't have with me, that it would be as if that sweatshirt did not exist and the case would proceed without us proceeding with regard to that. My recollection is Mr. Gulash made clear that if a sweatshirt was brought, that would therefore no longer be in effect, and I'd allowed to cross-examine this witness regarding that. I hear Mr. McGinnis at sidebar saying, well, that's not his understanding. That's my understanding, and I had an attorney. So if we're going to get into this issue, then I would obviously require the presence of Mr. Gulash regarding the agreement, some of which there's the separate issue that they're not going to be able to tie in that sweatshirt is completely irrelevant. But to the extent that it might be, I would be entitled now here in the whatever week of trial, third, fourth week of trial, just cross-examined this witness about his denial of knowledge about that and how his DNA was in the interior of it. And then later, well, very well could have, after he checked and he realized he had the identical brand sweatshirts in his closet. So that's where we're at. That's why I'm objecting, and I think that it's certainly prejudicial. It's certainly going to raise issues that I want to keep in mind. I denied, disagreed that there was a conflict of interest that would require me to be disqualified, but that started a very lengthy month-long process with negotiations between then special state's attorney Sedensky and Mr. Goulash. So here we are. Here we're about to get into something that will be clearly prejudicial, since I would be prevented from cross-examining this witness about his claim with regard to that sweatshirt and his prevarication to the police about it until he gave it some additional thought.
Well, is that agreement in writing?
Judge, if I really want to be heard, Judge,
Well, the court also wants to be heard,
I understand, but
not but, counsel. The court is going to be heard. Is the agreement in writing?
it absolutely is. These arguments, I think it completely distorts the record. So I apologize to the court for my riding the wave of zeal, but I'd like to just clear up the record once and for all as to this particular issue. In March 2021, Tara Knight, then Attorney Knight, now Judge Knight, reached out to then Chief State's Attorney Colangelo and indicated that she had evidence related to Dulo's case. When the police personnel arrived at Tara Knight's office, she had a box and she indicated that she was turning over the evidence to them. When they opened the box, there was a letter from to Judge Knight tools. Now, at that point, Attorney Schoenhorn proclaimed attorney-client privilege. The evidence was seized. It was subsequently submitted for DNA testing, and Pavel Guglielmi was considered, I believe, I don't have the report in front of me, a contributor on that particular blue sweatshirt. Incidentally, the defendant's hair was found on that sweatshirt, along with her DNA being on the tools that were in the box, which I think is also relevant here. Attorney Schoenhorn indicated that he would seek to introduce that sweatshirt in evidence in support of, I guess, his theory that Pavel Guglielmi was the bicycle rider that was seen on surveillance footage in Exhibit 386, which the court has not yet received into evidence. There's surveillance footage from the general direction of Waveney Park towards Jennifer Dulos' home. It's our theory of the case that that is Mr. Dulos on his childhood bicycle. I told Mr. Schoenhorn at that point that if you seek to introduce this sweatshirt, which was identified as State Police Exhibit 591 through 596, I believe were the exact item numbers, that it was my position that he would be a witness in the case because he was a necessary witness in the chain of custody. Not introduce that sweatshirt in the case. We proceeded to file a motion to disqualify him on the grounds that he was likely to be a witness given his stated intent to introduce that sweatshirt into the case. He then hired, he also misstates what Pavel Guglielmi said. Pavel Guglielmi said he owned that exact brand. I believe he said, and I'm relying on my colleagues here, Judge, he indicated that he owned He owns similar shirts to that, and he has had similar shirts looking to the one shown to him. So there was never any identification as to the brand. Mr. Schoenhorn hired Attorney Goulash to represent him in a potential disqualification proceeding. Attorney Goulash for months negotiated with myself and Attorney Sedensky to basically get us to agree to not introduce Weed Street footage which shows in exchange Schoenhorn not using the sweatshirt during the trial. We refused. And we were prepared to proceed with the disqualification hearing. And you'll recall, Judge, because we actually filed a motion to seal the courtroom. And the court granted the motion to seal the courtroom. Attorney Goulash at the 11th hour reached an agreement. And I believe I was actually part of this agreement. I was certainly the one standing there on the record when we effectuated it, that Mr. Schoenhorn would agree to not use that sweatshirt, which was identified as Exhibit 591, or any of the items identified as 591 through 596, i.e. the items that were seized at Tara Knight's office. And in exchange for that, the state is no on the record, and she waived any potential conflict from Attorney Schoenhorn conceding that he would not use items 591 through 596. There was never an agreement, ever, where the state said that we would not mention the red bucket or the sweatshirt inside of it during testimony. And the reason for that, Judge, is because there is no way, absent Mr. Schoenhorn, I guess, potentially testifying, to say that the sweatshirt which was in that bucket is the same sweatshirt that Schoenhorn turned over to the state police in March of 2022 through Tara Knight. So I think, quite frankly, this is a huge distortion of the record. The stipulation should be in the clerk's file. I believe and I want to be clear, Judge, and I'm trying best to stay calm. I am saying this in the strongest of terms, that this is a complete distortion of the record, and I'm just going to pass forward the actual agreement in writing, which begins with stipulation regarding state police evidence items 591 through 596.
Thank you. This is full already, correct?
Well, Judge, that was a stipulated agreement between the parties. I don't know if it was received.
Out of another proceeding.
Correct, sir. Yes.
The stipulation is in 2 paragraphs. And first, the court will put this stipulation into context. The stipulation is an agreement that addresses whether Attorney Schoenhorn is likely to be a necessary witness at trial. That's the context of the stipulation. The defendant, this is paragraph 1, the defendant will not under any circumstances introduce any evidence during trial in the above captioned matters concerning the box or its contents which were seized at then Attorney Tara Knight's office on March 23rd, 2021. and logged into evidence as state police items 0591 through 0596. And the parties will proceed as though the contents of the box do not exist. Now, so that the court is clear, the bucket and are not contents of the box? That's a question.
There was never any evidence that they were, Judge. And so, to be clear, the state does not concede that that's the same sweatshirt. As a matter of fact, when Pavel Gumini was interviewed about it, he indicated that sweatshirt that he saw was dark in color. And so the only evidence is it wasn't the same sweatshirt.
No, in the box, correct?
There was not, sir.
Well, as this was a stipulation between the parties, the court is not going to litigate the stipulation. This is a matter of record. The representation by the state, it is that the bucket and the hoodie were not contents of the box. Attorney McGinnis, specifically as an officer of the court.
Well, I just want to I don't want to interrupt, I just want to be clear. There's no evidence that it was, and so that's my position. And the defense specifically indicated that they would not, under any circumstances, introduce those items. And we offered something in exchange for that. But what we offered was not, we did not indicate we would not mention the bucket or the sweatshirt that was in the bucket at all. What we offered was to withdraw our motion.
May I respond?
Yes.
At sidebar, I did not say I introduce the contents of the box. What I said at sidebar is this opens the door to cross-examining this witness about him being shown a sweatshirt that had been tested by the lab. He was told it had his DNA in it, but he claimed he didn't recognize it. He doesn't know how his DNA got on it. And then later, I don't remember, I'd have to go back and look at the report. At a later time, he contacted the police, I can't remember directly or through his attorney, that said, well, wait, I went back and I looked at my sweatshirts that I had in my closet, and I realized that very well could be my sweatshirt. So it goes to the right to cross-examine the witness. I and my attorney took the position that there was no basis whatsoever for me to be a witness, since I never intended to introduce the actual sweatshirt. It's on video that this witness was interrogated about it, shown a sweatshirt. It has the initial CMR, which Your Honor knows are the initials of Christine and Roy, since we her name and her device. Therefore, I wanted to alert the court that as a result of that, I would intend to cross-examine this witness about his reaction to being shown a sweatshirt, his claim that I was shown a navy blue sweatshirt and that it was actually the one he saw was lighter than that he recalls, and therefore it goes directly to the right of cross-examination. I also want to point out, this is also putting the cart before the horse, because the claim, the court should look at these called bicycle video. It's sees for approximately 2 or 3 seconds, is in any way clear, visible. You cannot tell gender, height, anything. Somebody whizzes by in a camera. I should know one of which is stop action. That this probably is not even relevant anyway. The court should understand this goes down a slippery slope. if it's allowed in, I believe I have the right to cross-examine, and I'm not going to introduce the contents of the box. And that's all I stipulated to. But in addition, if the court, this is the theory. This is the theory that the police made up. There's a bicyclist a half hour away from Wells Lane, riding on a street called Weed Street in New Canaan. It is not even a direct route to Wells Lane, and it's certainly not captured on any cameras near Wells Lane. So to suggest that there is a bucket with a sweatshirt in it, that somehow the court or that the jury should then infer from that from a anonymous bicyclist, that this might be the same thing, when there's no evidence of that, and there's no evidence of a bicyclist arriving at Wells Lane, it gets back to the, we get to cross-examine about.
Well, first, as the court reads the stipulation uses the language introducing the evidence. The court is reading that broadly. The court is not reading that as the first party to introduce this evidence is the party that is introducing this evidence. The court reads that as puts in examination. So, again, the fact that the stipulation reads introduce any evidence does not, in this court's view, indicate that the only way that evidence can be introduced is through other than cross-examination. The state does not intend to introduce evidence of the box. The state is introducing evidence of a bucket and a hoodie in the back of the Tacoma. How we get to the box at in other words, the court is indicating that the fact that the state is introducing evidence of a bucket and hoodie does not carry to cross-examination concerning a box in the possession of Attorney Knight. So as the court did not read the second paragraph. In exchange for the defendant's agreement not to introduce said evidence and proceed as though the contents of the box do not exist, the state agrees that the first argument in its motion to disqualify filed on October 11th, 2022 is now moved. To where that Schoenhorn is likely, there's a compelling need for his testimony. The distinction between what's in the box and what's in the Tacoma. The state representing that there's no evidence that what was in the Tacoma was in the box.
And I'm representing the question, forget about the box. He was questioned about a sweatshirt. Because when this sweatshirt was turned in, there was no DNA testing, etc. He was shown a sweatshirt. He didn't recognize the initials on them that said CMR. I'm just looking at notes right now. This is a videotaped interview with this witness. I mean, technically, to the extent that it is relevant, I could cross-examine about the contents of the video. There's no mention of the box, if I recall, in that interview. He's shown a sweatshirt. He denies that it's his sweatshirt. He then says, well, this looks darker than the sweatshirt is. These so-called blurry videos show a very dark, almost black hooded sweatshirt. So I'm saying this is a slippery slope because it's also putting, as I said, the cart before the horse. The court has to even entertain whether these clips, these fast clips of a blurry bicyclist have anything to do with this case. And Amy sweatshirt that Mr. Umieni has shown has his own DNA in it. Doesn't understand why. And then later says, well, that could be.
Again, the court is reading the language shall not induce broadly. And to put it in lay terms, no mention. That's how the court reads it, no mention. So the court is going to allow the inquiry. Of course, these matters are preserved for appellate review. But again, court is not going to choke by using court is going to use this term, a noose, for the term shall not introduce. We're not going to choke the stipulation for it simply to mean other than in cross-examination. We can bring the jury back in.
I'm not sure I understand. Does that mean the court is precluding me from cross-examining this witness about his interrogation by the police regarding?
If that is contents of the box, yes.
Well, to be honest, I don't believe that the video indicates where. I'm assuming that they showed him, but again, just based on me from cross-examining the witness about being shown a sweatshirt that they told him had his DNA. He denied it was his, later said it might be his, but it was a different color. It was darker than the one you recall seeing in a box.
Just the defendant into this agreement. Mr. Schoenhorn precluded himself when he entered into this agreement in exchange for the state withdrawing a very colorable motion to qualify. And it is the height of disingenuousness to stand here and say, they showed him a sweatshirt from the contents of the box that I've agreed not under any circumstances to mention and proceed as though it doesn't exist. And then cross him about those very contents.
The court is in agreement with the characterization that it is the stipulation that precludes the cross-examination, not the court. We can bring the jury in. Stipulate.
Yes, Judge.
You may proceed, Attorney McGinn.
Mr. Committee, I can't remember exactly where we left off, but I think you were discussing a bucket that you found in your Toyota Tacoma, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was inside the bucket?
I believe it was like hoodie or jacket, blue color.
And what color was the bucket?
Red.
Can you describe the bucket for the jury in terms of its size?
It was smaller 5-gallon bucket with like a, like little nose in it, like cleaning bucket. It makes it easier to pour it to water to the smaller container.
Did you notice anything else in your vehicle at that time? What did you do with the bucket?
I took the bucket and I went upstairs to the office. I didn't see Dulos there, so I left it in the laundry room. And then I believe I saw him on my way back when I gave him back the key to my Tacoma, and I told him I left the bucket. And I said like, thank you. I don't.
After you had this conversation with Mr. Dulos, what did you do?
I went to work, went to New Canaan.
Back to 61 Sturbridge?
Yes,
And what vehicle did you take?
the Jeep. I believe I left it at
Now, this week began Monday. Did there come a point during that week where do you recall exactly what day that was?
No.
But you can tell us it's sometime the week of May 27th.
I believe so, yes. Woodshed on right near his property.
And did the topic of Jennifer Dulos' disappearance come up?
Yes,
Who brought it up?
Michelle.
And do you recall what the defendant said to you about Jennifer Dulos' disappearance?
Said by the news online, and she said, I'm gonna kill that fucking bitch when she's gonna turn up. And I said, don't say that. And she said that she's gonna be suing the news down who posted what pictures. And I believe at that time Dulos walked out of dining room door, and then he was asking us. It like became awkward. He asking us, "What are you guys doing?" And Michelle said, "Nothing. We just talking." Like this is how the conversation ended.
Mr. Committee, you've recently disclosed that conversation, is that correct?
Yes.
Why did you decide to recently tell my office about that conversation?
I, things, I didn't think, people say those kind of things and they don't mean it. And I just, I wanted to all this. what's up with this? This doesn't work. The seats are not original. He told me, they look ghetto, you should get rid of them. You should change it. And I told him, yeah, I know, it's, you know, the truck has other problems, I gotta get to it. It's leaking oil and things like that, and I told him, I'll get to it. But he told me, no, you should change the seats, you should fix the truck, sell it, or lower the price. And sell the truck, I'll give you a good deal on the Jeep.
I'm gonna check the hearsay.
Court does not hear it as being offered by overruled.
And I told him, I don't want your Jeep, I need something that's all-wheel drive for snow plowing.
You indicated lower the price on your vehicle. Were you trying to sell your vehicle?
I had that in mind for like a year to get upgraded, to get a better truck. I didn't post it anywhere.
You told us earlier that you actually would use the Tacoma for snow plowing in the winter. Is that correct?
Yes,
So having a vehicle had the ability to hold a mount for a plow was important to you?
yes.
And would the Jeep Cherokee have been,
It was two-wheel drive, it's just not. The Jeep Cherokee wasn't all-wheel drive, and
did Mr. Doulos mention you go to a dealership also?
that he mentioned to me on another day.
When Mr. Ride back from the car wash, was he alone?
Yes,
They gonna get it, you better hurry, they coming. They're coming.
Did you see the defendant at any point during this conversation with Mr. Doulos about the car wash?
I don't recall it now.
Now, after you had this conversation with Mr. Doulos, did you take your Tacoma key back?
I believe when he got out of the truck and he was telling me about the seats, he handed me the key.
Now, did he tell you why he was giving you the key?
No,
What did you do with the key?
just put it in my pocket.
And did you go home that evening?
Yes,
What vehicle did you go home?
Jeep.
When you were speaking with Mr. Doulos, did you have a chance to look at the vehicle also?
And I was, when I got in there to grab my Jew charger, I looked inside, yes.
And how did the interior of the vehicle appear?
It looked clean.
How many years had you been leaving your Tacoma at 4 Jefferson Crossing?
That's around farming area, not drive company vehicles as much. So mainly there was 2 projects in New Canaan and I believe Darien. There was 175. I can't remember the others. So I want to say like a year, maybe year and a half.
And had Mr. Doulos ever washed your truck?
Prior to that date,
Yes.
No.
Had he ever had the interior of your truck cleaned?
no.
Did you ask Mr. Doulos to do either of those things?
No.
Now, after you went home with the Jeep, did there come a point in time that same week where Mr. Doulos called you about your Tacoma?
Yes,
Do you recall what day that was?
No.
What did Mr. Doulos say to you in that conversation?
He said, he called me and he told me, the news are here, you trust, outside, I
Objection,
don't
you're
see.
saying.
If I may, Judge, it's being offered to explain why he went back to 4 Jefferson Crossing.
Doesn't sound like it's going there.
Well, the question was, what did he say? The response, the beginning of the response was, the news is here. Can you sharpen the question, please? Attorney McGinnis?
Did Mr. Doulos in that conversation ask you to do anything?
Yes,
What did he ask you to do during that conversation?
he asked me to come up to Fort Jefferson and take my truck home or park it in the garage.
And did he tell you why?
Because the news were there. And he didn't have a key.
Did you go to 4 Jefferson Crossing?
Yes,
Who did you go to 4 Jefferson Crossing with?
I asked my wife to give me one.
Now, by this point, you knew that Janet Doulos was missing, correct?
Yes,
Were you nervous at all, the fact that Mr. Doulos had washed your truck?
not until I have this next conversation.
At this point, were you suspicious that Mr. Doulos was involved in?
Your Honor,
this?
I'm going to object this is now leading and irrelevant. He asked how he reacted, but he's asking leading questions.
Well, the testimony so far is that the court is characterizing the testimony. Mr. Doulos had kept the Tacoma out of the possession of the owner for a period of time. And the next question characterizes, were you suspicious having heard that Jennifer Doulos had disappeared?
The previous question, if I may recall, was that he went and picked up the car and his wife brought him there. So it wasn't about there was nothing about him keeping the vehicle at that time. He'd taken the key, he was asked to take the car because, quote, the news was there. And then we get into, well, you suspect at this point, and that's what I'm objecting.
Well, the court understands counsel's concern, but the evidence already is that at some time before this conversation, Mr. Kumani wanted his truck at a certain time and it wasn't given to him. And so the question as the court hears it is, taking all of this into account, including the disappearance of Jennifer Doulos, did you become suspicious? Overruled.
Mr. Comini, at this point, were you suspicious that Mr. Doulos was involved in the disappearance of Jennifer Doulos?
Not at this point, no.
Can you tell the jury why not?
I knew this guy for a very long time, and I think that he was a good guy.
I want to direct your attention now to Thursday, May 30th, 2019. Did you have another conversation with Mr. Doulos about the seats?
I believe that was the Thursday when I had the conversation, yes.
What was the date again, please, Counselor?
May 30th, 2019. How did that conversation begin?
I believe he started with telling me if I want to, and I told him that I don't like Chevys, I like Coma. And he told me, he asked me where can I buy seats? Junkyard? And I told him, yeah, I think I can get them in the junkyard. He told me, go to junkyard, get Tacoma seats or some other seats, pay cash. We're in Bush. And then there was conversation about work. They asked me what I was gonna do tomorrow, and I told them I have to go to New Canaan. I believe I had to meet with the gutter guy, and I had some other things to do over there. And he told me yes, so go do that, and after go to junkyard and buy seats. And he told me if I call you or if we talk about it on the phone, let's not call it seats, let's call it hardware.
Conversation that you were having with Mr. Doulos in which you referenced the term hardware in person or over the telephone?
I believe in person
Do you remember where it was?
at Fort Jefferson.
Do you remember about what time of day it was?
I don't.
When Mr. Doulos indicated that he wanted to refer to the seats as hardware, how did you react?
I didn't say anything.
Did you agree to try to find seats?
I did.
After this conversation, were you growing nervous, suspicious about Mr. Doulos?
Yes.
So why did you agree to go to a junkyard?
I didn't want to lose my job. I had wife, kids. He was my main income, health insurance. And on top of all that, I have a non-compete signed with him. So if I lose my job, I'll have to move out of state, basically. There was a guy who used to work for him and quit his job, and then he's going after him really hard with the non-compete.
When you say he was going after him really hard, you're referring to Mr. Doulos going after the former employee really hard? Is that correct?
Yes.
Friday, May 31st, 2019.
I was gonna go and eat with the gutter guy at 61 Sturbridge. And I have some things I was doing at 61 Sturbridge. And I believe in that week I had a flood in the basement. I might have brought some dehumidifiers and set them in the basement.
And had you been in communication with Mr. Doulos during the course of that week about the project at 61 Sturbridge?
Yes, I believe so.
Would that communication have been over the telephone?
Yep.
Approximately, well, did you travel to 61 Sturbridge on Friday, May 31st?
I believe so.
What time did you arrive?
I don't know.
What would it have been, morning, afternoon, evening?
It would have been morning.
And when you arrived, what was going on at the house?
I believe the gutter guy was there. I met with him. And I could have set up the humidifiers in the basement.
Approximately how long were you at 61 Sturbridge?
I believe I left,
Was the other guy still there?
yes,
After you left 61 Sturbridge, where did you go?
I was driving back towards Farmington.
And are you still in the white Jeep Cherokee at this point?
Yes,
When you were on your way back towards Farmington, did you receive any phone calls?
I believe Doulos called me, yes.
Mr. Dulos said,
He asked me if I was gonna go and get the hardware, meaning the seats.
was this the first time he had referred to the seats as hardware with you over the telephone?
I believe so, yes.
What were you thinking as he said this?
Objection.
Well, what were you thinking when he said, are you going to go get the hardware? Ground.
Speculation, irrelevant. Is what he was thinking. I know he was thinking about going to the movies.
Well,
Maybe I
of
could
course,
ask.
the question can be asked in different ways. So as asked, sustained.
Mr. Gimeni, when Mr. Dulos referred to the hardware, were you thinking about going to the movies?
No.
What were you thinking?
Again, and speculation and relevance.
Well, the witness would know what he was thinking. However, what can be asked, because what the witness was thinking may not have become what the witness acted on. So perhaps it can even be a sharper question.
After Mr. Dulos asked you whether or not you'd taken care of the hardware, what did you say?
Said I'm gonna go and look and see if I can find any.
Were you feeling nervous at this point?
Yes, I was